Well, welcome back to the studio and our closeout for our third week in November. And so these final week closeouts, November and December, they're going to be a bit shorter and a slightly different format than we'd seen in the past, because it was really difficult for me with my travel schedule to actually be at the system on the day of closure, and so that all just became kind of useless. And so we're going to go ahead and just truncate that a little bit. These will be a little shorter. You'll see why in a minute here. But additionally, you'll also see in the closeout for November that we were really struggling behind the scenes to try and figure out what the hell the Tesla software was up to. In this week's update, I'll show a couple of screenshots and talk a little bit about those transitional switching errors that were getting really annoying. But as we close out December, you'll start to really see what was really knocking us around quite a bit in the background. And so let's go ahead and get to it. We will start off here on November 14th, where we left off. And so starting the day at 88% system charge, we have 20.7 kilowatts of production and only 16 kilowatt hours of home usage, so the system wound up ending the day at 100%. The power wall is getting a workout, and again, that's why we see the benefit of having all those batteries at this transitional period, where you have a lot of in and out, 9.2 kilowatts from the power wall, and then 13.6 back in. And so if you've only got one power wall, you're already exceeding your swing. If you have two, you're probably okay. Three, you got a bit more freeboard. So anyway, still see that annoying 1.7 kilowatt hours to the grid though, and we're showing 1.5 kilowatt hours from the grid. And so this in and out is roughly matched, so it's okay, we'll just kind of cancel it out. But as you've seen in previous weeks at this point, I'm not really sure if this is by design or whether it's some kind of an actual switching error. Is this actually taking place, or is it just kind of a theoretical thing? We'll get to that later on in the closeout for November and in the first week or so of December. So I'll kind of keep you on pins and needles there as we go through this. But here's the notes. No real help other than just the odometer data. So nothing really to see there. We'll go ahead and move on to the 15th. And so again, starting the day at 85%, ending with the system fully charged. We got 24.7 kilowatt hours of production with a home usage of 23.4 kilowatt hours. And then again, from the two grid basically cancel out, only a 0.2 kilowatt hour difference there between them. So, it is what it is. And again, the power wall getting a workout, 11.9 from and 14 kilowatt hours to. And again, this starts to show us getting close to that transition point, where we're no longer, soon we will no longer be breaking even. And normally, if the system hits 100%, you'll see a decent amount of power go to the grid. But as you can see here in this case, we barely touched 100%. And so the notes, again, nothing of merit to report, just the odometer readings. And that brings us to the 16th. So starting the day at 82% after a rather predictable 20%-ish loss overnight. That's pretty much our typical usage. So we've got that 23.2 kilowatt hour total production with usage of 19.8 kilowatt hours, and that's pretty typical for this transitional period in the year where we're not really using the AC obviously in November, but the heater is also not really on much, so we don't have that cycling fan drawing power. And so that left us with a 99% charge in the battery at the end of total solar day. And the notes, again, no news is good news in this case, just the odometer reading. Told you this was going to be quick. So that brings us to the 17th. And again, starting the day, 83% system charge. We again hit at 100% at total solar day. And so we had a production there of 23.5 kilowatt hours and home usage of 16.4. And so this time, though, you see some asterisks there and the notes. And just like we said for the 14th and 15th, we're starting to see some more extreme switching numbers, over 2 kilowatt hours of just switching to the grid. And so we still can't show that grid icon, obviously, because the system took over 2 kilowatt hours from the grid and did this when the batteries were full. And so I'll close out this video a little bit with more of my thoughts on that, so we can talk about that as a kind of a topic of frustration, but we'll save that for the end of this video here. And so on the 18th, we've got a grid icon. So starting the day at 85% after a slightly reduced demand from the home of 16.4 kilowatt hours and a production of 23.6, we managed to peak out early enough that we were able to send some power to the grid. Not a lot, it's certainly not enough to do any driving on, but it's at this time of year, mid to late November, that's still pretty impressive that we were able to do that. So that's kind of cool. And then obviously now driving isn't the purpose for that overage. Now what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we keep the system topped off to 100% for those cloudy days that we know are coming or hope are coming. And the notes, and as pointed out, a nice bit of joy for mid-November here, and a little overproduction of our home's needs. And then on the 19th, another grid icon, a little bit of production out to the grid, starting the day again at 85%, nearly an identical evening consumption to the previous day, only slightly less production. We managed to send out a little over 3 kilowatt hours to the grid and still maintain the batteries at 100%. And the notes, nothing to see, just the odometer reading. Again, pretty typical day. Nothing in the system threw up any kind of red flags, so is what it is there. And so then we have the 20th moving right along. And again, on the surface of it, a good day, starting the day at 84%, ending at 98% system charge. But again, we see this whopping disparity of usage. Why 2.7 kilowatt hours of power is pulled from the grid when the batteries are over 80%? That just doesn't make any sense to me. And so 19 kilowatt hours of production, 18 kilowatt hours used. More importantly here is that 16.6 kilowatt hours used from the previous day, since that is in reality, whenever you look at the data, the home usage data, what's actually being replaced by the system was actually what was used the previous day. It's just how that all works as we roll through this. So and the notes, and as I put my frustration to words here, after the math is all over and done with, we wind up using 1.3 kilowatt hours from the grid as a result of all these kind of spiky transitions that occurred for no reason. Now, all of this, if you'll remember, all dates back to what we were seeing on and around October 21st. Pull this up here for you. And so on October 21st, we started to really see these annoying transitional spikes actually start to affect what we were seeing. And again, as you see here in this little screenshot, we pulled 1.7 kilowatt hours from the grid in spikes. So that, to me, again, didn't make any sense considering the fact that the batteries, if you'll remember at this point in time, were fully charged. And so why are we even seeing any of that? Well, to be honest, the spikes actually dated back to about September 23rd or so, when we identified that Tesla had done some software updates on that. And again, more to follow on that in later updates. I'm not trying to keep you on pins and needles. In reality, what I want to do is I want to present the information as you are seeing the screenshots and the effects that it had on the system. And so to go into any great detail here really doesn't do anybody any good, so we'll go ahead and save that for when we actually have the data to show you to explain what it is that we're looking at. But these spikes actually did go back into an update that Tesla did in September, and it's updates that we've been fighting ever since. We actually pretty much lost control of the system under its self-powered setting, and so again we'll go into that a little bit later on. But let's move over to the 21st, and again very well, for so late in the year, 83% system charge starting the day and ending at 98% finish after a 22 kilowatt hours of production and 19.8 kilowatt hours of home usage. And again, the to and from numbers show that something is still off going on with that software there. And the notes, as shown, we shouldn't really be taking any power at all from the grid given the state of charge. So we end the day at 96% instead of 98. So what? What we're trying to show here is that we can remove our reliance on the grid. And so all of this just kind of muddies the waters for no reason. Oh, and one other thing that you'll notice here is that I've removed the odometer readings from the car. I'm just going to post a total reading for the odometer numbers at the end of the year. Having a running total of the mileage serves no purpose at this point, since the car isn't actually being charged at the home, it's being charged at the studio. So, and then we'll close out as we usually do on the 22nd. Good production for the day, but slightly elevated home usage, and that shows us with a start of 82% and a finish of 96% at the end of total solar day. And again, we also see an increase in these spikes winding up, showing a draw on the grid of that 3.3 kilowatt hours. So that's obviously annoying. I'll give you a minute with that to take a look at these other numbers. And then we'll go to the notes. So finally, we got to the point where I had to call Tesla regarding this error. It was getting too much. And so after going over my logs, they escalated it to what they call Tier 2, as you can see in there. And as you know from our previous video where we had that problem with the switch, the physical switch, cutout switch on the side of the house, all Tier 2 means is that they've sent a call out to SunWorks, and that then SunWorks needs to send somebody physically out to check on the system. And so you can stay tuned till next week to see how that all turned out. Again, I'm not trying to really make this into a cliffhanger, but I want to be able to present that information along with the supporting data so that you can actually see what the hell's going on. And that's about it. So I'll keep these updates coming about every couple of days or so until we wind up getting caught up, and then we'll go over the numbers, the review of the year. There's a lot to go over. And again, my apologies for the delay in the videos. I've had some family health issues and some other things kind of crop into the mix, so I apologize about that. But actually the lion's share of the delay was actually formed by going over all of this data for the year. It just took me far longer than I had thought it was going to tease out the real meaning in all of this. It's one thing to look at the raw data, but raw data can actually be very confusing. It can make the system seem a lot more efficient than it really is, and then it can also show some faults where they don't actually exist. And so, as always, the best of luck with your own systems, and we'll be seeing you soon.